Hey, friend Church D coming at you once again. Thank you for tuning into What Does It Take to Win? I hope you're having a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. It depends all on whenever you're listening to this episode. I hope it's all good for you. Hey, I just want to give a quick shout out to some of my new subscribers and my new listeners all across the world and even right here in the United States. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for connecting. In case you're not aware, I'm just going to give you the quick rundown. I'm sure the older, more seasoned listeners to this podcast are fully aware of what I have to offer. But since you're brand new, I think it'd be great for me to give you the rundown of some of the services that I offer. So I do offer a private piano lessons course. It's virtual. It's a 7-week course. You can go ahead and purchase that. And, you know, it'll take your piano playing to the next level. We'll meet once a week to go over what you've studied and even to go over some new tips and tricks and to just enhance your piano playing. Also, you can purchase my full catalog of music. It's available just by clicking the link in the description. I'm sorry I didn't say that first in regards to the piano lessons, but you can access that by clicking the link in the description. It's going to take you to my link tree. But yeah, so back to my entire catalog of music. You can purchase that. My most recent release is a single by the name of Don't Quit. Prior to that, I put out a full-length album entitled Something's Missing, an EP entitled The Big Reveal, another single entitled The Vision, and finally my very first album that I came out with entitled The Cactus, Bare Minimum 2.0. So you can access all of that just by clicking the link in the description, and it will take you there to my full music catalog. And even I might have a new release coming out. So you heard it here first. So stay tuned for that. Keep it locked. You know, maybe hit the subscribe button. Also, if you are a content creator, a rapper, a singer, anybody who's into music, you know, a videographer, maybe you have a cooking channel and you just need some instrumentals, well, I got you covered. You can download any of my beats or instrumentals just by clicking the link in the description and just find where it says Get Beats or even Lease Beats. And it will take you to my SoundClick page where I have over 100, maybe 150 now that are available. Good to go. All you have to do is just select the one that you want, download it, and it is yours. And yeah, you can lease beats, share it with your friends, share it with your family. You know, if you need some nice background music for your content that you're creating, I got you covered. If you're a rapper and you need some beats, I got you covered. If you're a singer and you need an instrumental, I have you covered. Also, if you'd like some exclusive rights to it, meaning nobody else will have that instrumental but you can go ahead and reach out to me and we can talk pricing for the exclusive rights. So again, you know, head over to the link in the description and just select where it says Get Beats or Lease Beats. If you don't want to do it that way, you can go the old school way, head over to soundclick.com/churchd and you'll be able to access all of my music there. Okay, so let's jump into the topic of the hour. If you'd been listening to the last couple of episodes, you'd recognize that we've been exploring the idea of prioritizing things in our lives. You know, first we're talking about, you know, saying no. You know, just because somebody tells you that you have to do something, you don't necessarily have to. And really trying to separate what's important from what's trivial. So some things matter, some things, they don't matter as much. You can get by without having to be a part of it and, you know, devoting your time that you would use to work on yourself to certain things. So I'd say this is the cumulative episode. And in this episode, we'll be focusing on our priorities. So the title of this episode is Get Your Priorities in Order. This sort of came to me because I was scrolling, I believe it was on Twitter, and I saw they made a post that their objective or their priority was to make others unhappy. Interesting, right? And I had to ask myself, I was like, why would that be somebody's priority? Like, that's just strange to me. You know, there are so many other things you can do in life besides prioritize making the next person unhappy. So I just wanted to explore this idea a little bit more and, offer some insight on that, maybe even some advice, if you will. And yeah, so let's just dive right in. This episode shouldn't be too long, but as always, I'd like to have 3 points to focus on to try to keep us on track. So the first point is, what are we prioritizing? That's a question. The second point is it important or are we working in vain? And the third and final point is how to know when to shift. Now, before we jump into the points, let's first define the word priority. So as I looked up the definition on Google, I found that priority can be defined as the fact or condition of being regarded or treated as more important. Another definition of the word priority is a thing that is regarded as more important than another. So in both definitions, we see the word important. So as we're prioritizing or we're focusing on what our priorities are, we need to make sure that we're focusing on what's important in our lives. So the first point, what are we prioritizing? Now, I like to usually start my problem solving with a question. Believe it or not, sometimes the answer, well, actually most times the answer is embedded in the question we're asking. We just have to say it sometimes to recognize, the answers are already there. So what are you prioritizing? Is it the opinion of others? Are you prioritizing, let's call it toys. So air quotes, toys, or things that you like to play with, like, designer clothes, jewelry, expensive cars, little gadgets, things that don't actually bring wealth, etc. Is that what you're prioritizing? Or are you prioritizing your mental well-being, your physical health, family, helping one another, and legacy? Make sure you're paying close enough attention. And if you are paying close enough attention, you may find sometimes 9 times out of 10 that you may need to readjust what you're prioritizing. And again, ask yourself questions. What are you prioritizing? Is it important enough? Is it worth prioritizing? Actually, that's a good segue into point number 2, which is it important or are we working in vain? So again, as I just mentioned, ask yourself, is what you're prioritizing actually important, or are you stressing yourself out? Are you prioritizing things like making others unhappy, like the person's post that I read? I'll give you an example from my life. So these days I've been a lot more busy. There's a lot of moving parts that are happening, a lot of great things actually that are happening, but it's demanding of my time. And if I'm not focused, certain things will be prioritized incorrectly. So here's an example. Recently, there was a deadline for some projects that had to be completed. It was something I was working on. There was a deadline that was set. Thankfully, I was able to meet that deadline. But then after that, I was assigned yet another task to complete. I became a little uneasy about this as I was concerned that I might not actually complete this task on time. On top of that, there was another person who was making demands and requesting that I shift my schedule to accommodate their schedule. Now, this is not the wife. This is not even a family member. So before you guys start to think like, oh, his wife is bullying him. No. It's all good. I love her. She loves me. But that's besides the point. So yeah, this person, they were making demands that I shift my schedule to accommodate theirs. Instead of making a choice out of pressure, I decided to pause again and think through each situation, assessing the importance of each. And really prioritizing, okay, which should be addressed first? The new task that had been assigned or the schedule demands, which should be addressed first? Well, I came to find out that both were actually unimportant. I know. 2 of them just really didn't matter. So first, I addressed the scheduling demands and I cleared that up. Here's one thing, if somebody tries to pressure you to switch your schedule to accommodate theirs, that's a red flag. You might want to look into that and say, okay, why would I be prioritizing your schedule over whatever's going on in my life? Sometimes they really do need your help, and you'll have to, make that call on your own. But if we're being honest, you shouldn't have to switch up your schedule to accommodate somebody else's. Okay. So yeah, I addressed the scheduling demands first, and I cleared that up. Then, I completed the new task at my own pace, especially since there was no deadline assigned. So that's another thing. Sometimes we might prioritize events, tasks, etc., and really work ourselves to the ground, or, we'll try to be there, and there hasn't been a deadline set. There hasn't been a sense of urgency applied to this. And we end up being tired, burnt out, exhausted. But we completed the task, or we met that deadline that had no sense of urgency. And that really wasn't even like scheduled, like saying there's a deadline where you have to complete this or you must be here. Now, did you notice what I prioritized in that last example? Sometimes they'll say read between the lines, or, listen to what's not being said. I'll give you a second to think about it before I answer it, because you can't really talk back to me. I can't actually hear you. Maybe you could message me. Let me stop with the jokes. But if you noticed, what I had prioritized was my mental well-being. I chose to not allow those two situations to stress me out, because they very well could have. I could have began to overthink and worry, and then enter into a panic mode, and then nothing would have been done. I would have just been like, you know what, I can't do this, I'm sorry, and then everybody would have suffered. But I prioritized my mental well-being first. I decided, pause, let me think about this. Which is priority? Okay, none of them were priorities. It's not important, no big deal. I will do it at my own pace, or I'll say no, and that's that. You know what? I think that's also another good segue into the third and final point, which is how to know when to shift. Now, if it's not edifying, then it's time for you to shift your priorities. Interestingly enough, I actually put out a song named Priority. Go check it out. It's on my album entitled Something's Missing. But that's, I just had to plug that really quickly. So back to being on topic. If it's not edifying, it's time for you to shift your priorities. Sometimes we get into the habit of always being busy, and we find ourselves taking on projects and prioritizing things that don't even matter. It's almost like being addicted to being busy all the time, that when you finally get some downtime to rest and recharge, you sort of feel guilty, and you look for the next project to be a part of, or the next task to complete. And then, you start prioritizing things that don't even matter. If you're always physically or even mentally exhausted, this could be a good indication that you may need to shift. As I mentioned in some of my previous episodes, you're not really adding value to something if you're unable to perform at your highest level. Look at fighting or any type of martial arts, boxing more specifically. What the opponent tends to do is to train. They'll really condition themselves. It's usually like a lot of running and a lot of exercises that help to improve the cardiovascular functions and to build stamina and endurance. So these athletes, they will get into tip-top shape. They'll get their bodies to a certain weight, and they'll do a lot of running, of course. And their objective isn't necessarily to knock out their opponent right away. They're not building so much power and strength. They're building endurance so that they can pretty much dance around their opponent, tire them out. And then when the opponent is fully tired out, exhausted, and fatigued, even mentally exhausted, all it takes is maybe one or two strikes and that opponent's going down. It doesn't even have to be the hardest hit. Well, Okay, now let's take a look at ourselves. Let's say that we are that opponent that has been fully fatigued, completely exhausted and tired out because we had been prioritizing the wrong things. We've been prioritizing making somebody else unhappy, or tasks that are unimportant, or having to be somewhere, or having to be at events that aren't really edifying or adding value to our lives. Now, all it's going to take is one small missed opportunity, and that's just going to knock us right out. It might not even be a missed opportunity. It might be something else. But the point of the matter is, it's going to be something very minimal and trivial that could be very detrimental to our physical or mental well-being. It's just that last straw that broke the camel's back. And we don't want that to happen. So we need to make sure that, we're prioritizing things correctly. We'll know when to shift, and that we take that step and do so. And that was my third and final point. So let's do a quick recap. The first point is, what are we prioritizing? Believe it or not, sometimes the answer is embedded in the questions we ask. The second point, is it important, or are we working in vain? Is what you're prioritizing actually important, or are you just stressing yourself out for no reason? And the third and final point, how to know when to shift. If it's not adding value and if it's not edifying, then it's time to move on. Don't let yourself be that opponent who gets tired out and all it takes is one minor hit to take you down. Keep pushing. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I hope it blessed you and I hope it encouraged you. Hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to share this. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with people you don't even like. Share it with that person who keeps bothering you for advice. I got you covered. And lastly, if you'd like to connect with me, just click the link in the description for all of my content. I have some great things in store for you. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.